Strategy is key. Strategy determines whether or not a team is successful when you need it the most. In the clutch situations, can your team execute? Can your coach draw something up? And that is why today we need to dive into what they can do regardless of who wins so that they can finally make their first NBA Finals appearance. So today we're going to look at both sides of the coin. What can Minnesota do if they play OKC or if they rematch with Denver for a third time in 3 years? And the first matchup we're going to look at is the OKC matchup and what they can do to defeat the number one seed. Anthony Edwards is going to have to show he is the best playmaker on the floor. What we're going to see here, right, is a really good job of getting into that double, which I think, honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if they try and drive Ant downhill, right, and then immediately they can try and force a double or a hedge and then force Ant to be a passer. But I think Ant has shown in these playoffs you can't just force him to do that because he's going to make the right play. He's going to make the right reads. Although sometimes, right, the passes are going to be a little rough. So, for example, I wouldn't be surprised if Rudy Gobert's out there on the floor, Chet or iHeart is Draymond coming up at the level. Buddy stays on him. Right now, B-Pods is trying to cut off the possible, Rudy, alley, or pass. It's a little bit of a rough pass, right? They're able to get a piece of it, but then you can get it out to Mike Conley. And again, that is the kind of playmaking Ant is going to need if they want to win this series. Frankly, Ant has stepped up to the moniker of a playmaker. Honestly, he might be the best playmaker in that series if they're playing the Oklahoma City Thunder. Again, just notice they keep trying to run this double action every time, right? They go for the screen. B-Pods basically ignores the screen, goes over it. Okay, thanks. Mike Conley wide open for three. So if you're OKC, you can't just try and run the double at Ant. And if you do try and just, let him run one-on-one, he's going to go downhill like he does right here. And then just wait one more out to McDaniels. Just look at this, right? He loses the dribble a little bit, waits, gets Draymond stuck here with Rudy, and goes right to Jaden McDaniels, who gets the dunk. So in the first hypothetical matchup, right, Ant is going to be the playmaker for this team. The other thing that the Oklahoma City Thunder are going to be worried about is Julius Randle imposing his size on the opposing team and going downhill. Randle does a great job here. He gets, Trace Jackson Davis and is able to basically just baby him along to where he could get to a spot. Now you got Buddy Hield on you. Right now, the Thunder at times are going to do switches like this. He just absolutely babies Buddy Hield here, right? Just get out of the way. I'm going to do my thing. Get downhill. Now, is he going to necessarily always be able to do that with iHeart or Chet? No. But I do think the imposing of the size is going to be important, right? Going downhill, forcing the problem, and that could get them into foul trouble, which we've seen throughout this Nugget series at times has hurt them. Randle, I think if he really plays downhill, really plays aggressive, there is nothing that they can do. So I think it's a matter of will Ant, really take over? Can Julius get downhill and get to his spot? Because he's been doing that all playoffs long, and if he's able to continue to do so, Oklahoma City's in some real trouble here. And then finally, we got to talk about how I think they can, in some ways, really replicate that defensive scheme from the Denver Nuggets. I think the reason that this defense is very replicatable is because you can run this sort of zone against SGA and dare others to shoot. Because instead of Jamal Murray, you would have Ant. Instead of Christian Braun, you have Jaden McDaniels, who now, right, in an action like this is going to be suffocating defense. And most importantly, yes, you might try occasionally to hunt for Rudy to get out onto that perimeter, but that rim deterrence is going to be massive. So at the end of the day, right, the defensive scheme actually, I think, can actually slow down this Thunder's offense way, way, way more than we expect. Especially because if a team like Denver, who I think is far inferior defensively to the Minnesota Timberwolves, I don't see why they would not be able to force and replicate this same sort of action, right? Like, this could easily be someone like Randle. And then instead you would have Rudy, and again, this could be Jaden McDaniels. Like, these defenders are going to look even better. So I think at the end of the day, they can actually make Oklahoma City's life extremely uncomfortable. Ultimately, I do think the Minnesota Timberwolves are going to have a major struggle here. I do think, right, because I have pointed out their path to success, but that's easier said than done, right? Can Ant be that consistent playmaker, or is that defense going to be just, if not more, suffocating for an offense that doesn't have an engine like Nikola Jokic, who doesn't try and, force two bigs to basically have to completely change your defensive scheme versus where you can have someone sag off if you have Rudy, right? That's going to be the major thing. I actually do think the Wolves have a better chance than I thought because of how, Denver has played, and they haven't been that good offensively. So at the end of the day, why can't I think a better defensive team have a very good chance against this Thunder team when they have been a little bit underwhelming, quite frankly. So I would say ultimately I'd probably end up going Thunder in 6, but do not be surprised if the Timberwolves won that series in 6 or 7 either. And then we're going to get into the rematch, part 3, the trilogy of Denver versus Minnesota. Anthony Edwards is going to be mega aggressive if they want to win this series as a scorer, right? Get Peyton Watson on him, force the tough contest and one. Anthony Edwards, I think, can dominate this series just because unlike SGA, and is a dominant 3-point scorer, right? It's not going to be as easy as, okay, let's send Russ and Christian Braun or Jamal Murray and he can just hedge and we'll stop Ant from driving this certain way, right? Because even here, you got Aaron Gordon one-on-one. At times, even with SGA, they've left this matchup. They're just like, okay, once in a while, obviously they'll send a second guy over if they need to, but Ant's able to just break him down, and Jokic don't want to get involved, right? Because he don't want to get in foul trouble. Ant just needs to make the issue known in the paint, where he has been struggling so far these playoffs. But I think that in this issue specifically, that this Denver defense is not going to be able to necessarily contain Ant whatsoever. Again, now you get Peyton Watson on him, go downhill. Even with Jokic standing there, right? Jokic waits in the restricted area and is able to just rise up and over. And I think that if they're able to basically not spam it overly, of course, but have that be their dominant way of getting the offense generated, there's nothing Denver can do. So I think offensively, Ant, obviously he still needs to be the playmaker that we would want, in an OKC series. But I think here, Denver, I don't think they necessarily have a choice in terms of Ant scoring. They can try and throw different coverages at Ant, but I think that the way that they're schematically there is going to be harder. So ultimately, I think Ant just needs to be aggressive, get in the paint, and honestly, I think Denver is going to struggle to adjust defensively. Then I think Julius Randle is going to be a huge factor in this series because honestly, I think he can bully a lot of mismatches here, right? Aaron Gordon gets stuck. Now you have Christian Braun. I've seen Randle, again, in the playoffs, bully smaller players to go downhill to get his shot, right? I love this stagger screen action they get, right? They wait for Ant. Gordon comes over. Now Jokic is stuck, right? Just notice. The stagger screen happens. Christian Braun completely sinks under it, right? Just completely cuts off the idea of the roll. Cool. Now Gordon's over. Now Jokic is stuck in no man's land. Boom, 3-ball, nothing you can do. Actions like that, I think, can kill Denver. If I'm Minnesota, that's some of the first sets I'm running to see how they try and, combat it. But even just look here, right? Now you got Jokic stuck down here. You're basically, you're playing man. They go down. Then he tries to come over. But again, they're absolutely bullying Christian Braun, which is going to be a problem for that, for this team. Because I don't know if they're going to be able to, because they can't take Christian Braun off the floor, right? They just don't have the depth for it. So I do think Randle can take advantage of his size here, get downhill like we see here. Boom, gets Aaron Gordon, respects the 3-ball, gets the shouldering, creates that little bit of separation he needs with the pump, and then gets the ball to fall. So I think, honestly, if Randle remains aggressive, I really do think Denver's going to have a hard time schematically with this team because they all have players who are more than willing to go downhill and attack and do it consistently, which is going to make Denver's life a living hell. And then finally, I do think Minnesota, for whatever reason, they know how to make Denver uncomfortable offensively. And they're honestly, in some ways, they can do it better than even OKC has, which is they can run someone like McDaniels, make Jokic uncomfortable, he's trying to get down there, force it down, keep it going. Then Rudy can be that backline support, right? Can come right up, snag it. Now, obviously, unfortunately for, the Timberwolves, they don't have Cat, who, for whatever reason, turned into an all-NBA defensive player when he played Nikola Jokic. But I think, again, the way that they are able to play Jokic, the passing lanes, the turnovers, in the 4 games they played in the regular season, Jokic averaged about 5 turnovers a game against the Timberwolves, right? So even just look at this pass attempt right here. They go, gets it. This is just a bad pass, right? And then the Timberwolves can go and force and create offense. Right now you got Rudy out there on the perimeter. They immediately send someone over to help, strip him of the ball, and they get the lead after they are down damn near 15 going into the end of the half. And again, now you've got Jokic forced to make uncomfortable passes. They try and run the screen. Randle completely ignores the screen and then just completely throws the ball into the backcourt and then again is made uncomfortable. Nikola Jokic is not going to have an easy time with this defense. And with that in mind, I think at that point, you can very well defend the others just as good, if not, I don't know if better, but they could defend just as good as OKC because they are a very good defensive squad. So ultimately, I think defensively, their job is a lot easier because they've played this team so many times in the playoffs, in the regular season. They just know, for whatever reason, when they play the Nuggets, they know their playbook. They just know how to make them uncomfortable. And I'm going to be honest, if you are Minnesota, now obviously these are two very tough opponents. And OKC, right, like they're just a way better team, like overall on paper than the Wolves. And the Nuggets, they know each other's playbook very well. But if I'm Minnesota, I want to play Denver, personally. Just because their defense, I don't think is going to have nearly as good as an effect as it does on this team that it does on OKC. I also think that, quite frankly, right, they know how to play Jokic and make it uncomfortable just like OKC does. If not, now OKC, show the blueprint of how to do it even more often, right? Because you could have Ant kind of be that Caruso sneaky getaway right underneath, as Jokic is putting his head down trying to get downhill. If the Nuggets and the Wolves played, I would have Wolves in 6. I really would. I think they know how to play this team well. I think this Wolves team has a legitimate chance at the finals this year. But let me know what you guys think down below. I try to do things a little differently. You guys are going to notice there are timestamps here so you guys can watch the specific team matchup you're looking for. As always, guys, this was Mr. Knows Hoops. Let me know what you guys think down below in the comments. Do you think the Wolves are finals bound either way? Do you think if OKC makes it, wrap it up for Minnesota, their season's over again? If they play Denver, does Minnesota come out on top? Let me know what you guys think down below. As always, this was Mr. Knows Hoops. Don't forget to leave a like, comment, subscribe. I am blessed to have every one of you watch this video. Thank you. Peace out.